Good morning. Did you like the movie? I apologize, we didn't have the translation. I don't think we had the translation on for the movie, but that was actually a pretty important event for us. That was the first ever Children of Surrogacy panel that we did in our last New York conference. There have been many panels that we have done and that other organizations in the United States have done about children of gay and lesbian parents, but that was the first panel that was specifically for children who had been born through surrogacy, and it was a pretty amazing event for us. I want to welcome you to what I hope will be the first of many parenting options for European gay dads. My name is Anthony Brown. I am the chairman of the board of directors of Men Having Babies. Can you hear me in the translation booth? Excellent, okay. And I'm so overwhelmed at the turnout that we've had. I'm so happy that you have all come. This is a real sort of milestone for our organization. To give you just a point of reference about who we are and why it's so kind of you to invite us over, Men Having Babies started as a very small handful of men at the Gay and Lesbian Center in New York City, who basically wanted to get as much information as we could about having our own biological children. So we started having monthly meetings, which we still have today, and we started inviting in people who could answer our questions about biological parenting. So we invited doctors in, and we invited lawyers in, and we invited representatives from fertility clinics and surrogacy agencies to answer our questions. And that has grown in the United States now. We have 5 annual conferences, large format conferences like this one. We have conferences in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Tel Aviv, and now in Brussels. But I think the thing that we're the most proud of as an organization, and the reason why we became an incorporated nonprofit organization, as we realized that one of the greatest impediments to having your own biological children was the cost involved in surrogacy. And so we implemented something called the Gay Parenting Assistance Program, or GPAP, which I'm going to speak more specifically about later in the program. But I did just want to share with you that in the 2 years that we have started GPAP, we have given away almost $2 million in donated services, discounted services, and cash grants to qualifying individuals and couples. So we have worked very, very hard to give the ability to more men to have children, and we hope that today you will learn a lot. You may have started off today like any other day, putting on your clothes, having breakfast. Some of you may have traveled here, but it's my hope that by the end of the day, your lives will have changed. At the very least, I hope that all of the questions that you have about biological parenting will be answered. But at the very most, it's my sincere hope that some of you may actually meet the people who are going to help you have your family here today. We have an amazing group of sponsors without whom we could not do our events. We are going to have an expo later. You're going to have a chance to speak with them. But I do have to let you know that we're going to be throwing a lot of complicated information at you, medical information, legal information. And the decision to have a child is such a personal decision. And what I have found out from being in Europe, it is so complicated and there's so many different layers depending on where you live and the sort of concept of what surrogacy is here. It's very overwhelming. And at some point today, you probably are going to feel like your head is exploding and you're going to want to run screaming from the room. I ask you to please bear with it, push through it. You have an amazing opportunity today to speak with people who can answer your questions. And every single person here is literally here to help you out, to answer questions that you have. So I ask you to stay for the full day of programming. We have an amazing presentation for you. We have a lot of people for you to listen to. And before we get into the program, I do want to thank a few people. Our board of directors, George Sylvester, who you may have met, who was registering people, and Ron Poole Diane, our executive director. We're the three representatives from Men Having Babies from New York. I also wanted to thank our the amazing people, Sarah and Julia and Mark from Mirgit Events. If I pronounced that wrong, I'm so sorry. From the Netherlands, you guys have been amazing help for us. Also, Gay Surrogacy UK, many individuals from Belgium and France, including Didier Diesenhaus and Baptiste Heinemann. But I also want to thank specifically the way that our Gay Parenting Assistance Program works is the vendors who come to our events and the money that we generate from our events, it goes back into that program. So we can give you cash grants and the donated services that they give to us. So there are a few people who I would like to thank, namely Worldwide Surrogacy Specialists, Creative Family Connections, Connecticut Fertility, Extraordinary Conceptions, Northwest Surrogacy Center, IARC, Oregon Reproductive Center, SEEDS, and the Fertility Center of Las Vegas. And I encourage you, when you go to the expo, when you meet people, ask them if they're a part of GPAP. And encourage them to be a part of GPAP if they aren't already. Also, one last plea before we begin the program. Many of you are connected with organizations representing either gay men or gay parents back in your home countries. We need your help to get GPAP going here in Europe. We need the cooperation of your organizations, and we need people who will dedicate themselves to assisting us in the process. We understand that there are legal layers, and we're going to do the work to try to find out how that happens, but just put us on your radar. Talk to your organizations about our organization, and if we can make the funds that we generate from our events available to you, it would be our honor. So I want to introduce to you our Executive Director, Ron Poole Diane, who personally is responsible for about half of the children born to gay men in New York City. Ron literally was one of the first surrogacy dads in New York, and without him, I think Men Having Babies certainly wouldn't be. So please welcome Ron Poole Diane.
I think what Anthony just said demonstrates the difference between gay parenting and heterosexual parenting. If this was a heterosexual convention and he said that I was responsible for half the kids in New York, it would have had a slightly different implication. And in fact, this is why we're here. I mean, gay men know how to have fun, but not when we're having kids, unfortunately. It could be very hard. Not that it can't be, a meaningful and a very sometimes even fun experience. But as a category, gay men have the hardest time becoming parents. That's just the reality. Not gay and lesbian people, but gay men. Because lesbians have a much easier time becoming parents. Heterosexuals, I just alluded to that. And this is why we started this. When I had, my kids at 2-3 years old, I felt that it was just not right that so many other people cannot have children. And the reality is that it is much harder in Europe than in the United States. And the fact that up until last night I was getting emails from people saying I'm going to get in the car in Switzerland and drive here. Is that person here, by the way? Maybe in the other room. And please let us sign, register at the last minute. Just shows how much, there is a desire here for becoming a parent. So we didn't choose this reality that it's hard. We're just going to try to improve on it. And we had a symposium last night at the Hilton, for those of you who attended, where we were also trying to understand a little bit the context. Why is it so hard in Europe? So I don't have to tell you, you probably know much better than me, but there are a group, as it turns out, of protesters across the square who think that what we're doing here is wrong. And I think they're dead wrong. And I think that we're going to be doing our best today to help you do what is right for you. And later on, we're going to have a presentation about personal stories of people who've done surrogacy in the United States and some surrogates as well. And in fact, for the first time, we're also going to have a section in our presentation about adoption. Since our role, we see, is to help people find out about parenting options. In the United States, there are many adoption, related associations, so that's not as big of a role of ours. But when we realized that there's a new, relatively new, option for people to also to adopt children from the United States, we decided to make that part of our presentation today, and also make it part of our assistance program. So we will have several grants also dedicated for people who will end up, if they choose to adopt children from the United States, they will also be able to apply to GPAP for some assistance in that, because unfortunately, the costs associated with adoption are almost as high as maybe, sometimes it could be as little as half, but still very high. It's not something that could be done, very affordably as well. So we're here to help people find out about options. We're going to start by talking about planning your surrogacy journey. We're then going to switch to talk about adoption, break for personal stories panel after the coffee break, and then come back to talk about how to pick providers and finance and budget your journey. So we'll have some more announcements about what is happening, what next, etc. But we'll start now with our presentation.